Thank you. Now, to link, as we've said in part 1, to link the three personalities of the narcissist, the sociopath, and the psychopath, to link them to the human condition which we all have to work against as part of our human nature, part of the mess that we inherited from, unfortunately, our father Adam, which we hope that Christ washes away in his blood. But we also have to help Christ in ensuring that we don't have these characteristics. Now, to link this, I'm going to link this to racism in a moment. But before I talk about that, I have to say that the problem, the reason why we have such a momentous problem with this character types is that the human nature, which is rotten and evil, except God comes and transforms it, wants to feel superior to other people. This really is at the bottom of it, the deep down in the recesses of man's thinking. He thinks to himself better, not only better, superior to other people. And until we're able to get rid of that incessant desire, then we are going to have a problem with racism. Now, the things that I've just mentioned up until now are mostly cognitive things that have spiritual things rather, that have a cognitive application. I'm about to go the other way and discuss cognitive things that have a spiritual implication. There have been many teachers, sages, even prophets, writers, researchers who have discussed and talked about this thing called racism at a much better length, with a much better resume than I could ever try or attempt to do. I was raised under a Pan-Africanist tradition, so I know a thing or two about these writers. I can't do justice to John Henrik Clarke's works, or to Sheikh Anta Diop's works, or to James Small's works, or to Ivan van Sertima's works, or to Joseph Benjo-Cannon's works, or to Chancellor William's works, etc. We'll be here until whenever, quoting names who have made a contribution in this area. But suffice to say, I will say this, that the problem of racism, I forgot to mention Neely Fuller, who I believe is somebody who's understood this issue at a much greater extent than most people that I've just mentioned. He's been able to define what racism, white supremacist is in terms of a functional psychological thing most clearly. But the spiritual dimension that I believe I can add to this is that racism will not be solved unless human beings stop having the desire to feel superior to other people. The fundamental problem with people who champion Egypt and the civilizations of Egypt and of Nuba also, which is south of Egypt. The problem that they have really is that Greece stole their intellectual property and championed it and didn't give them credit for it. So they want to dominate in exactly the same way that Greece, with its intellectual might, has been able to plagiarize and dominate. And they also want to dominate in the way that Rome, with all of its ammunition and manpower and firepower, also has been able to dominate. That really is the problem. So, the psychopaths in the Pan-Africanist movement are jealous of the psychopaths in the white supremacist movement. And they're having a fight one with another to say who's superior. and one comes puffing his chest out saying, I am more superior to you, and the other saying, no, we are more superior to you, and they have a good ding-dong one with another. The losers, the disabled people, the poor people, the people who feel themselves unattractive, are not, of course, engaged in this discussion. And God bless them for not being engaged in this discussion. So there you have it. It's very simple. Get rid of your desire to be superior one to another, and racism won't be such a big problem. Having said that, though, into the 19th century we had something in Europe called the Enlightenment period. This Enlightenment period was a moment when Greece suddenly realized that it was the intellectual birthplace for all things. Obviously plagiarized, but this is what is believed. This is widespread classical thinking. And this is gobbled up by all people who envy the civilizations in Greece and use it as a hallmark and as a benchmark for progress, for things like democracy, for things like the rule of law, etc. However, the psychological, intellectual power behind this force is also bolstered by the theory of evolution. The reason why most people of European descent look to evolution as something that is the holy grail, is the panacea of all things intellectually sound, is not because it's a sound theory that is completely infallible. No, it's because they see evidence, they believe they see evidence that they have evolved. So it's not just a matter of black people or brown people or other civilizations doing better than them or copying them. It is that they believe that they have evolved from black and brown people, and because they evolved from them, are a higher of a higher intellectual and physical superior, and because they feel that they are an evolution of people who are black and brown, they feel that they owe them a duty. That is, European people or people of European descent who are psychopathic or sociopathic feel that they owe humanity a duty to first enslave, because when you have a brute animal, this is all intellectually conceived, of course, when you have a brute animal like a zebra, one must, through force, or a wild horse, one must through brute force instill order in such a brute beast. So the sociopath and the psychopath of European descent believe in evolution, and because they believe in evolution, they believe that and because they believe in evolution, believe that these brute animals must be physically forced into knowing what civilization is. And after the brute force of slavery has been applied to them, then you garnish this meal. It's like you can imagine a piece of bread, and you beat the bread down to get the dough flat, and after that you apply some powder to kind of garnish it. So the garnish and the powder that was applied was colonization. So after slavery you have colonization, and after that you have civil education, and after civil education then you have slowly assimilation into the European way of life.